eyes of the ranger are upon you. Any wrong you do, he's gonna see. When you're in Texas, look behind you, 'cause that's where the ranger's gonna be.
You gotta love Chuck Norris. Yeah, Walker, Texas Rangers, one of my all-time favorite TV shows. Now, speaking of not too long ago, you remember during the 2000s, Texas football kicked ass during that time. They averaged more than 11 wins per season from 2002 to 2009. During that 8-year stretch, they also won a pair of Big 12 championships, had a couple of Heisman Trophy runners-up in Colt McCoy, and, of course, Superman Vince Young, who led UT to the national championship in that epic game over USC. Of course, that was back in the mid-2000s. That was then, but let's take a look at most lately, the last 8 years. A period of football that Texas would mostly just assume forget. Only 53 wins during that 8-year stretch from 2010 to last season, and by and large, they haven't even come close to contending for Big 12 titles. But Tom Herman, he's determined to change that, and we're going to give you a couple of positives for Texas before we break down the offensive defense. Number one, Herman did guide Texas to a winning record. I know you might be saying barely at 7-6, but remember Charlie Strong was zip for 3 during his 3-year stretch for winning records. That's right, losing record every year from 2014 to 2016. And number two, Herman is starting to get those big-time impactful players from the state of Texas. As you might know, high school football in Florida and Georgia and California and Texas is about as competitive as they come with the colossal of 4- and 5-star recruits in Texas. They're getting those guys, especially on defense. We'll talk about the defense later, but let's begin offensively, where last year the Longhorns averaged 29 points per game. One guy that I really like his determination, that's Sam Ehlinger, okay? He may not have the strongest and most accurate arm, but the guy can run with the ball, and he gives you a lot of heart and that grit that you like if you're a Texas fan. Last season, Ehlinger did throw for 11 touchdowns, had 7 interceptions, but played with a lot of passion. And I think he's going to be the number one guy entering this fall. Of course, Shane Buechele is the other quarterback with a lot of experience. Buechele has the stronger arm, had the more accurate arm last season, 64% completion percentage, but he doesn't give you those intangibles like Sam Ehlinger does. Now, I've been doing these blogs for about 10 years, and I have quite a few Texas fans who have subscribed to these blogs. And I would love their opinion on who they think should be the quarterback. Not who will be, but who should be. I would really love your input on that, since you probably are from the Austin area, if not close by, and you might have more insight on this topic than yours truly. Well, the quarterback situation, you got guys with experience. 2 years ago, you might remember the ground game. You had a stud in Deontay Foreman who did a rarity in college football. Had a 2,000-yard-plus season, and he did that in just 11 games, and man, was his presence big-time missed last year. This was a huge omission from the running game, because last year the Longhorns as a team didn't even get to 2,000 yards rushing. In fact, their leading rusher was Ehlinger, who didn't even have 400 yards rushing. That's right, Texas did not have a running back last year who was even close to that 400-yard mark. The Longhorns, 96th in the country in rushing, only 135 yards per game. That will not be a balanced attack for Texas at all. I don't care how many guys you got back. Daniel Young does return at 373 yards last season, had 4.6 yards per carry. Trey Watson, the Cal transfer, should help out, though. They should help out in this area. But Texas, the difference between 2 years ago and last season in terms of the running game is like night and day. It's like I'll be sure. If the Longhorns can give that running game a boost, then it should blend in quite well with the receivers. And Texas has a lot of studs in the receiving unit coming back. Calvin Johnson, a tall target at 6'6", a nightmare for defenses to try to handle, did have 54 catches last year for about 800 yards. Little Jordan Humphrey, he doesn't play little, he plays big, and you have him back. I think he could be the most talented amongst the wide receivers. And you got veterans there with John Burt and Gerard Hurd, both seniors. It seems like Hurd has been there since the Colt McCoy era. Of course, he hasn't been. It just seems like he has been. The Longhorns offensive line, lots of experience back. Connor Williams, though, he's departed, the All-American left tackle. Yeah, not having him there won't help. Remember, though, Williams was injury-plagued during the 2017 season, so you didn't always have him at full strength. But the guy you should have at full strength is another transfer coming to the Texas offense, and that is Calvin Anderson, all-conference honors when he played at Rice, and so you get that left tackle position fixed. You get that solidified. I think they'll be okay there. Speaking of the left side, Patrick Vahe does return at the left guard position, and Zach Shackelford is back at the center spot. But the Texas offensive line has to be able to open those holes for the ground attack and a better job in protection. 34 sacks is what they gave up last year. That was worst in the Big 12. And third down conversions was a major problem. Only 38% of the time did Texas convert on third down. And tackles for loss, 7 per game is what Texas gave up, 110th in the country. So lots of opportunity for Texas on that offense to try to improve. To me, though, the Texas defense is the biggest reason why this team had a winning season and went to a bowl game. The defense, what a turnaround. Todd Orlando did one hell of a job with this defense that in 2016 was a train wreck, but last season really excelled. They were very difficult to run against. They did give up 21 points per game. That's pretty good. Third best in the Big 12, top 30 in the country. But this team was very difficult to run against. You return 6 of the top 10 tacklers, but you do lose at least one key player from all 3 areas of the defense. Now, we'll begin with the line where you lose Poona Ford, but you return a lot of arsenals back up front. Again, these guys were hard to run against. Charles Omanahu is back. Senior had 28 stops, and he's had a career that has seen 19 starts. You have another defensive tackle, a guy who I think stock is shooting up. That's Brecken Hager. He's a senior, 22 stops for him. The linebackers, though, and this is a big void. Malik Jefferson, the Big 12's co-defensive player of the year. He turned pro, but there are plenty of players that could still step it up. That's Malcolm Roach in an outside linebacker spot, 33 tackles. And also, too, middle linebacker, a veteran in Anthony Wheeler, 45 stops. And weak side linebacker, you get Gary Johnson back, 57 tackles, 6 of those were for losses. So Texas in that 3-4 defense, this defense could very well be the best in the Big 12 despite the departures. And speaking of which, yeah, the secondary lost Holton Hill, but also, too, lost a high draft pick in the safety in Deshaun Elliott. Texas, though, secondary-wise, I know they gave up their fair share of yards, but they also came up with interceptions. They came up with big plays. The Longhorns a year ago, +8 in turnover margin. That was top 25 in the country, and still plenty of experience in the secondary. And also, too, you know, of this big recruiting class that Tom Herman landed, his top 4 recruits, secondary players, most of them safeties, and B.J. Foster, don't be surprised if he plays, one of their top recruits in this 2018 class. But talk about the veterans, the corner, and Chris Boyd, one of the best corners in the Big 12. You also get Devontae Davis and his 25 stop from a year ago at the nickelback, guy who's played plenty, in John Bonney. And you get some safeties back in P.J. Locke, 36 stops, and a free safety. He was active in 2017. That's Brandon Jones with 61 tackles. Finally, the special teams, and it looks like they're going to wipe the slate clean at kicker and punter, going with freshmen in both positions. And you might be thinking, well, a punter is a punter is a punter. Yeah, try telling Texas that last year. They had the best damn punter in all college football, one of the best punters I've ever seen, in Michael Dixon. And his presence was big time. The Ray Guy winner had 42 punts inside the 20-yard line. Well, just like a year ago, Texas is going to start non-Big 12 play with some pretty good competition, and that will include the game at Landover, Maryland, to start everything off with the Terrapins. Last year, Maryland scored over 100 in surprising the Horns in Austin. You'll notice that 3 of the games have schools against all 3 of the Oklahoma FBS schools, Tulsa being the first. Shouldn't be a problem, though, against the Golden Hurricane. USC, this is an intriguing rematch. Last year, you might remember, Trojans were a big favorite, but Texas probably should have won this game, but late turnovers doomed the Horns, and the Trojans escaped with a W in overtime. The Big 12 opener, well, Texas is going to have their hands full. T.C.U., of course, went to the Big 12 title game last season. And you'll notice that the Red River Showdown from Dallas is on the first Saturday of October, not the second, which has been the case. Texas leads the rivalry, but Oklahoma has won 6 of the last 8. And late October, taking on Oklahoma State, the Cowboys have had their way lately, though, with the Horns. And November sees showdowns with West Virginia, whom Texas handled last year, but Texas Tech surprised them during Thanksgiving week last year in Austin. And you close out the year at Kansas. Surely Texas won't lose once again in Lawrence, right? The defense is going to keep Texas in virtually every game that they play in, but the running game is a big concern Now, I know Phil Steele has Texas picked high. And I know 2 years ago, Joe Tessitore of ESPN said that Texas is back. But you know what? I'm tired of hearing that Texas is back. They haven't been back, even though we keep hearing that Texas is back. Until Texas can actually prove it and contend in the Big 12, I'm not going to bite the bait on the hype. Texas will still finish in the upper half of the Big 12, but I've got them 5th in the league. That's my look at Texas. Catch you next time.